He conquered half of Europe. But Napoleon's most devastating weapon wasn't forged from steel. It was printed on paper. Cannons win battles, but credit builds empires. And in the early 1800s, a bankrupt general discovered the secret formula that still powers every modern financial system today. This is the buried history of how Napoleon Bonaparte, a man with no money, no gold, and no stable nation, engineered the blueprint for modern central banking. Long before Wall Street, long before the IMF, long before the age of global finance, there was Napoleon's machine. At the dawn of the 19th century, France was not a superpower. It was a financial corpse. The revolution had burned everything: the monarchy, the aristocracy, and the money itself. Paper currency, the assignat, collapsed overnight. Inflation devoured savings. At one point, a house in Paris cost the same as a loaf of bread. If you were foolish enough to pay in assignats, trust, the foundation of any financial system, had evaporated. And into this chaos walked a young general with nothing to lose. When Napoleon seized power in 1799, France was bankrupt, exhausted, and hated by its creditors. But Napoleon understood something most revolutionaries never grasp. Power doesn't just come from muskets. It comes from money people believe in. Not gold, not silver. Belief. So his first move wasn't military, it was psychological. Credit, he declared, is to money what the soul is to the body. In 1800, Napoleon founded the Banque de France, a central bank that looked private, but answered only to him. Part bank, part propaganda machine, part instrument of absolute control. Napoleon restored order not by printing chaos, but by printing confidence. Coins now bore his image. Currency was backed by silver, by gold, and by the unmistakable authority of one man. For the first time in a decade, France had money that meant something. Merchants trusted it. Soldiers accepted it. Citizens believed in it. But this system wasn't built for fairness. It was built for obedience. War is expensive. Napoleon's wars were astronomical. He didn't have enough gold, but he had something better. Credit. Napoleon mastered a strategy governments still use today: borrow against future victories. He issued bonds promising payment after conquest. Bankers bought them. Merchants bet on them. Every victory raised their value. Every treaty increased confidence. His wars financed themselves, as long as he kept winning. A new elite rose behind him. Financiers who operated like silent generals. They speculated on Napoleon's campaigns, moved gold through blockades, and built a second battlefield in the shadows. Napoleon once said, "Money has no motherland." He hated them, and he used them. Together, they built a system powered by perpetual debt, but confidence is not infinite. And war consumes everything. When tax revenues failed, Napoleon turned to extraction. Italy, drained. Belgium, emptied. The Rhineland, harvested. Spain's gold, shipped to Paris. Every conquest became a bailout. Every victory paid for the last. Across the Channel, Britain watched carefully. Napoleon ruled with force. Britain ruled with trust. While Napoleon dictated debt, Britain handed investors profit. British government bonds consols became Europe's safe haven. This wasn't a war of armies. It was a war of balance sheets. Whoever borrowed longest, rule. In 1806, Napoleon tried to strangle Britain with an economic embargo. He failed. Britain had the oceans. France had isolation. Prices soared. Factories died. Smuggling became Europe's largest industry. By 1812, the machine was running on fumes. Napoleon marched into Russia, not on strategy, but on credit. When the campaign collapsed, so did the illusion. The Banque de France could no longer back its notes. Merchants refused government paper. Even military officers issued their own currency. The empire was bankrupt. Napoleon lost his empire, but his financial system survived him. when the cannons fell silent and the eagles were torn down from European capitals. When Napoleon Bonaparte stood alone on the island of St. Helena, surrounded not by marshals but by waves and memory. It seemed his world had ended. But what he built in finance did not die with him. His armies crumbled, his alliances dissolved. His political empire vanished like smoke in the wind, but the machine he engineered, the fusion of money, authority, and confidence, lived on. The restored monarchs kept the Banque de France. When France's old kings returned, they did not dismantle Napoleon's central bank. They didn't dare. They understood what he had understood, that whoever controls credit controls the nation. So, instead of destroying it, they polished it. They strengthened it. They wrapped it in royal symbolism, but they kept its core exactly as Napoleon designed. A bank that served the state but pretended to be independent. A bank that could issue currency, manage debt, and steer the entire economy while the public believed it served them. The Banque de France became the heartbeat of a new France, a Bonapartist engine running inside a Bourbon crown. Prussia copied it. Across the Rhine, Prussia watched with envy. They saw how a shattered France had rebuilt itself not through gold, but through architecture. The architecture of credit. Prussia built their own version, a central bank that mirrored Napoleon's design, tight political oversight. A disciplined currency, and a system where the state could borrow endlessly without appearing desperate. It became the backbone of Prussian expansion, the financial skeleton later used to unify Germany under Bismarck. Napoleon's enemy had adopted Napoleon's model. Austria copied it. In Vienna, the Habsburg Empire studied the same blueprint. Their finances had nearly collapsed after fighting Napoleon for 2 decades. They needed a system strong enough to survive wars, revolutions, and imperial administration. So they borrowed his idea, a hybrid institution, half public, half private, designed to stabilize an empire too large, too diverse, and too expensive to manage. The Austrian National Bank became a cautious replica of the Banque de France, a quiet admission that Napoleon had solved a problem Europe still struggled with. Russia envied it. And in the East, the Tsars watched with frustration and fascination. Russia had land, soldiers, and raw power, but it lacked what Napoleon had created, a disciplined, centralized, modern financial engine. The Russian Empire envied the efficiency of the Banque de France, the speed at which it could mobilize money, the way it could support armies without destroying trust. They studied it, tried to imitate parts of it, and dreamed of controlling credit with the same ironclad precision Napoleon once commanded. And across the ocean, the young United States studied it. Even the Americans, a young nation still finding its footing, looked across the Atlantic with intense interest. The U.S. had no coherent banking system, only scattered state banks and political chaos. What Napoleon had built fascinated American bankers, economists, and statesmen. His structure, a central institution with private shareholders, state backing, and national authority, became the inspiration for the Second Bank of the United States. And, a century later, for the Federal Reserve. Napoleon's fingerprints reached all the way to Washington. His hybrid model, part government power, part private leverage, became the DNA of every modern central bank. This was his true, silent conquest. He fused 2 forces that had been enemies for centuries, political authority and private capital. Britain perfected the model. The pound became the world's first reserve currency. Then came the dollar. Then came the age of infinite liquidity. Napoleon's dream of a debt-powered empire didn't die. It simply changed flags. And today, every nation borrows tomorrow to survive today. Every central bank prints to avoid collapse. Every government believes confidence will last forever. But Napoleon left one final warning, written not in ink, but in ruin. Every empire built on borrowed trust eventually meets the same fate. Not with a bang, not with invasion, but with silence. The silence that falls when belief finally runs out. Because the system we live in of endless debt, controlled trust, and manufactured prosperity is not modern at all. We're still living inside Napoleon's machine. Thanks for watching.